Audio log 0013, researcher Dr. Elliot Rowland, Universe 85739. The Cold War is cited as having started in the 1980s, but no single date or event is attributed to the rising tensions. At the time, Osean and Yuktobania experienced large economic and military growth and expanded their nuclear weapon capabilities. As a result, the two countries became the most influential superpowers on the planet, naturally pitting them against each other as rivals. They subsequently entered a state of mutually assured destruction. With their nuclear arsenals acting as a backdrop, both Osean and Yuktobania began improving upon intercontinental ballistic missile technology. Among other things, this included improvements to ICBM range and deployment, early warning and recon satellites, and ICBM interception tactics such as lasers and surface-to-air missile defenses. In Osean, these developments were part of a program named the Strategic Defense Initiative. Concurrent with these developments, the Yuktobanian Navy Admiral Leonov proposed a new project known as the Arsenal Ship, a naval vessel capable of carrying hundreds of missiles. The Arsenal Ship concept would be repurposed to develop stealth submarines acting as underwater missile and aircraft carriers. In 1991, Yuktobanian Prime Minister Samanov formally announced the new Sinfaxi class of submarines and the Sinfaxi as the class's pilot ship. The submarine class would continue to see further development, particularly in reducing the number of crew required to man the ship. The Hrimfaxi was later developed with these improvements in mind. Osean responded by further developing anti-missile technology to counter these submarines and explored the possibilities of planting such technology in space. As part of the Strategic Defense Initiative, Osean had begun building the Strategic Orbital Linear Gun, SOLG, which would use kinetic energy to annihilate missile silos. This would be useless against submarines, and the satellite would not be able to engage missiles already launched. Thus, Osean's Department of Defense conceptualized a maneuverable orbiting spacecraft, one that could change its orbit at any time and use lasers to destroy missiles regardless of their launch phase. However, the Cold War ended before this concept could be made into a reality. While the Cold War continued, Osean was also involved in Belka's economic crisis. Osean's involvement in Ustio's independence, as well as the Five Great Lakes Resource Exploration Company, resulted in anti-Osean sentiment within Belka, who declared war in March of 1995. It invaded all of their former lands, including a portion of eastern Osean. Yuktobania, defying their tensions with Osean, joined the Allied forces to fight against Belka. Despite being on a separate continent, Yuktobania provided logistical support to the Allied forces, particularly by sending pilots from the Yuktobanian Air Force to fight in the war. Yuktobania was also signatory of the peace treaty that ended the war, though their role was limited in the peace negotiations. By this point, the tensions between the two countries had dispelled, and they began on the road towards peace. The Cold War also impacted Osean-Yuktobanian relationships for over a decade after the Balkan War, and also had a major impact on world events during and after the conflict. Due to the advances in ICBM technology, Belka saw fit to develop its own ballistic missile defense program. They utilized laser technology similar to Osean and created the Excalibur laser tower under the program. Development of nuclear weapons went presumably unabated, especially during the Cold War until June of 1995, when Belka detonated 7 nuclear devices within its own territory. Following this, the world's nations backpedaled and began promoting global arms reduction policies. Nuclear non-proliferation and disarmament were key fixtures of these policies. Such efforts included members of Osean's Council of Foreign Ministers, making special mention of it during negotiations for planetary defense against ULIZes, as well as the international signing and adoption of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty by 2008. After the Balkan War started, Osean continued developing the SOLG to use it against Belka if the situation called for it. The SOLG was still incomplete when the peace treaty was signed, and Osean abandoned it in the atmosphere afterward. Countries on the Osean continent viewed Osean and Yuktobania's rapid military development as a threat. By the mid-1990s, many Osean countries banded together to create the Osean Allied Forces. This alliance was tested when a group of southern Osean countries attempted to join the Osean Federation in 1997 through a military pact. Conservative extremists launched a coup d'état across the continent, and the Osean Allied Forces were embroiled in the Osean coup d'état for the next year and a half. After the Ulysses asteroid impacted Earth in 1999, many of its fragments remained stuck in the atmosphere. These fragments posed a threat to the planet as well as all satellites in orbit. Both Osean and Yuktobania expressed desire in cleaning up the atmosphere, and they decided to partner together in developing a solution. They determined that Osean's maneuverable orbiting spacecraft concept from the Cold War would be the ideal solution. Using Osean's design as a basis and adding Yuktobania's modifications, within a few years the Kirkburn was created. By 2008, the Kirkburn had cleared up over 80% of the atmosphere's debris, and it had become a worldwide symbol of peace. To that end, the Kirkburn became the host of the G7 summit in 2008. The Grey Men, a secret organization of supernaturalist Belkans, orchestrated the Circum-Pacific War between Osean and Yuktobania as revenge for Belkas lost in the Balkan War. Their efforts were successful, in part due to the members of both countries' militaries still holding animosity towards each other. Many weapons developed in the Cold War were used during the Circum-Pacific War, most notably the Sinfaxi, Hrimfaxi, Kirkburn, and Solg, the latter two being hijacked by the Grey Men. All of these weapons were destroyed by the War Dog and Razgriz squadrons.